everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Dr. Carmen Bryant, and this program is called Redefining Yourself. This is a program where we're discussing overcoming narcissist abuse. To all my new followers, all the new subscribers, thank you so much for joining me and finding something valuable that pertains to your situation, or even the aftermath of your situation, or for those of you that are new and trying to discover what is going on in your situation. I hope you find I have hundreds of videos on my YouTube channel, and there are other coaches that talk about very detailed information about the situation and what you've been through. And so hopefully you can find an answer to your issue and find some freedom and relief that you are not alone. And this community of subscribers are people that are here to support you. Now, keep in mind that everybody that's on the YouTube channel is not a survivor. Some of them are narcissists, and they listen just as well as you listen. They pick up on your language and they use that against you. So just be prepared, and be safe at the things that you post on the YouTube channel. And so before I get started, those of you that have not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. I'm Dr. Carmen Bryant. It's Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Hit the bell. I come on between 8 and 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Sundays live, so that you can come and talk to me and I can talk with you and I can answer some questions. So I usually don't have a big topic that day. I just open it up where we can talk to each other, and then I post videos Tuesday through Friday, pre-recorded, but I post the same day. So I apologize. Sometimes the videos upload take forever, and so some of you get the videos in the morning, but I do post them the same day. It's just that it uploads is kind of slow, depending on the traffic on YouTube. And I also have a Facebook page, Psychological Health Consultants and Services. Please hit the thumbs up, and I also post on there. Whenever I go live on both. Sometimes when I travel, I can only go live on one, which is YouTube. And so today I wanted to talk about the aftermath of narcissist abuse, or narcissist abuse and the aftermath. And so I wanted to describe it like this. I want to take time for a minute and describe it like this. For those of you that have been in the South and you remember the hurricanes and the storms that came through, I want you to imagine, and those of you that experienced it, my deepest condolences, because I did have the opportunity after Katrina hit the coast to go and visit my family, who at the time lived in Mississippi, and I had the opportunity to witness the aftermath of the storm. There were beautiful casinos that were right there on the coastline. They were all devastated. The dolphins that were in the contained area where people used to come see the dolphins, they had to go out and find the dolphins in the water. I mean, it was devastating. The highway was tore up. I mean, homes, you would see the homes that had marking on the homes, and I would ask what was the markings for, only to find out that the markings were to let the search and rescue team know that the house has been checked, or they have found bodies in the homes. And so I even have friends that have lost family members that they never found. Families were scattered. A lot of people lost everything. They lost their homes, their material possessions, their cars, everything, and had to relocate and start from nothing. Moving, FEMA, if FEMA assisted at the time, FEMA had the trailers up where FEMA's relocated people to try to assist them to restarting their lives. A lot of people from the New Orleans and Mississippi area relocated to Texas, and they were in empty apartments with no furniture, nothing. So the devastation was horrible. The pictures could not depict, talking one-on-one with people that have been so devastated, and the after effect, the trauma that followed afterward. And so in a narcissist relationship, coming out of that, it's literally like that. The devastation internally is almost that severe. And I don't take away the severity of that storm and what happened to people. And I know some people may say, how can you compare the two? But the psychological damage and the trauma and what was witnessed during that storm is almost equivalent to the trauma and the psychological damage that happens when you are in a relationship with a narcissist. They come in like a storm and they devastate everything. They devastate families. You leave the relationship, and some of you have left with nothing. No home, no money, no anything. You almost lost your identity, having to start from nothing. Some people literally had to go into apartments with no furniture, homeless shelters, lost everything. Their money, their businesses, their jobs, their identity, their self-esteem, everything. This is how devastating it is to be in a relationship, especially a long-term relationship with a narcissist. And many of you are asking, please help me out of the relationship. And it would be unwise of me to tell you, especially if you have children, just to get up and go. The best way to get up and go is if you have talked to a domestic violence advocate, or you have contacted, shelter. These are the people that can get you out of the situation, even relocate you without legal ramifications for your decision to get up and go and take children out of the home, because that narcissist can say you either abandon them or you kidnap the children. And so you have to be very careful, because narcissists are very calculative, and they are also, they think ahead of you. They take your situation and reverse it to make you seem like the monster. And so a lot of you are having to start all over again. And so my best advice to you, as I said before, get these videos into your system. If you have to binge watch in order to build up your strength and your courage to reach out for help. Number one, find a domestic violence advocate, the YWCA, find the advocates there to help you get out of the situation. Talk privately to the police department, where they can also connect you to DV shelters, but it's on record, so that when you have to flee that devastation, it is on record, and it will help you in the process in the legal system, when it comes to divorce, when it comes to protective orders, child support cases, child hearing cases, and some people left, but they didn't know that that's what they were going through. So you didn't know. So I'm telling you ahead of time, find a way to document it with professional agencies before you get up and leave. And before you leave, strengthen yourself through these videos. And so another thing to consider, leaving out of a, for some of you, you've told me some of your symptoms, some of the things that you're going through mentally and physically. And I wanted to also address, and I did before, I talked about complex post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic stress disorder, which is obviously anxiety, trauma related disorder. And I wanted to talk about it, and I went to Pedia and the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD, just to give you an idea. Complex PTSD has not yet been integrated into the diagnostic statistical manual. Hold on. Sometimes I get it wrong. It's DSM-5, y'all. The DSM-5. It is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorder. This is what is used by the mental health, psychiatry, psychology. This is the book that we use, but complex post-traumatic stress has not yet been implemented in the manual, and they are working on getting it in the manual. Post-traumatic stress disorder is in the manual, and let me show you the difference, because some of you guys are actually feeling the symptoms. So some of the symptoms you guys are describing to me, you're asking if that is normal. Obviously, mental health disorders are not normal, because they have resulted because of something. But the symptoms itself, what you're describing, is normal for that particular diagnosis. Now, I'm not diagnosing anyone, but I'm just going to give you symptoms so that you can relate to see whether or not you fall in that category. And so post-traumatic stress, on here, who's the author? Let's make sure we get proper credit. It says by Hassa. So it doesn't have a last name. Let me look. Hassa. So it doesn't give the whole name of the author. But the difference between the two. So talking about post-traumatic stress, which is a psychiatric disorder condition, and which occurs following an incident of trauma, such as loss of a loved one, accident, sexual or physical abuse, murder, warfare, etc. And so a lot of people assume that unless I've been in the military and have seen war, I will get post-traumatic stress. That is not true. This has the capacity to affect one's life in several negative ways. An individual doesn't necessarily need to experience or witness a traumatic event to develop PTSD, but learning about it or hearing about it is just enough. It's vicarious trauma. It doesn't say that here, but that's vicarious trauma. So you literally, vicarious trauma, you experience the trauma that they're experiencing just by them telling you that you are now traumatized. And that's what a lot of therapists have to be careful, because when they're dealing, especially trauma professionals, because we deal with a high volume of trauma on a daily basis, and they're giving you explicit details of a lot of trauma that they've been through: childhood sexual abuse of children, murder, some incidents that they've been in, that you're even shocked that they even came out and survived. And so you're taking upon these imagery in your head of what they're telling you back to back. So especially when you have full caseloads like I do, back to back to back, you have people coming and telling you these traumatic events, and each story similar yet different. And so therapists have to be careful, you guys have to be careful that we do not experience burnout and vicarious trauma, which is also post-traumatic stress, vicarious trauma from dealing with people that are traumatized on a daily basis. That's why we also have to do self-care and be careful and recognize what we feel in our bodies, like you have to recognize what's going on in your body. And so the 5 subcategories. So you have normal stress response. So, a lot of you guys have stress response, the boss getting on your nerve, a high workload at the job, you're just stressed out. Then you have acute stress disorder, which it could be like, I'll give you an example, like after a car accident, you have that feeling you don't want to drive for weeks, you don't want to deal with it. Oh my gosh, I'm nervous, and eventually you'll calm back down. And usually it's 3-4 weeks, usually you'll calm back down and things regulate. The adrenaline calms down and you regulate and you're able to, and now you're just more careful. I'm wearing a seatbelt, Then you have post-traumatic stress, which usually has an onset after a month after the event. And then the symptoms of it begin to intensify if untreated. And if untreated, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you, you too. And so if untreated, I take care of my mailman. So if untreated, those symptoms can get worse. Let's see. So people who are going through long-lasting interpersonal trauma are more susceptible to post-traumatic stress depending on the severity of the condition, personal attitudes, and threshold level for various emotions. When I did a dissertation, I did some research on post-traumatic stress, and I did some research on vicarious trauma. And what I found doing reading some journals and other studies is that a lot of people that develop post-traumatic stress, their coping ability was not as high as those that have learned coping abilities throughout time in life. Also, your family of origin and their history of trauma and mental health. And so what I realized, just like alcohol can have an effect on generations to come, which they are now predisposed for addictions or alcoholism or, those type of things, is likewise with post-traumatic stress and anxiety and depressive symptoms. You'll find that other people within the family may have had anxiety, post-traumatic stress, addiction, suicide, and so it's also learned and is also generationally passed on. Is passed on through the DNA, just like addictions, predisposed to it. And so let's see. While one stays calm, forgets it, and moves on, while another one develops acute stress, which may later convert into severe symptoms of post-traumatic stress. The most significant features of PTSD, are disturbances in self-identification and individual views. And so you may have gone into a relationship with a narcissist and felt confident. You remember you were being love bombed, so you felt good about it. You wanted to get into a relationship with that individual and have a life with that person. So you come in with very innocent views, healthy views about the relationship. And as you begin that love, that trauma bonding, and that devaluing and really torment. Some of you guys have literally been mentally and physically tormented. And so you come out and you have now a distorted view of yourself because you look at yourself instead of the person. What have I done to deserve this? I thought I was a good person. Well, everybody must be like this then, or it must be me. And so I just keep finding the wrong people, or maybe it is me because it seems like I am the one equation in all the bad relationships, because you haven't changed. And the reason why you haven't changed, you have not been educated or you have not self-identified and gotten education or learned that what you're dealing with some hurts and some pains for yourself, which drew that individual to you. That doesn't mean that something was wrong with you, though. It was something wrong with them. But being in a relationship like this, you lose your own self-identification. And remember, narcissists does not have their own identification. They just engraft with whatever they attach to. So tendency to involve in relationship and engage in activities which mirror the predisposed trauma. See, so you end up getting right back in the same type of relationships, and this also result from post-traumatic stress. You get back into the familiar, so you get right back into these traumatic relationships, so some of you guys, like, I keep getting into the same relationship. You haven't took the time to heal yet and identify what's going on with you, the traumatic part of you. Difficulties in controlling emotions and mood. And so remember, we talked about the borderline personality disorder, which is also a trauma related disorder as well. Some of it stemming from childhood, that fear of rejection and abandonment issues. And so difficulties in controlling emotions and mood, it can also kind of mimic borderline personality disorder. And it's not, or it could be. An additional personality disorder that goes along with post-traumatic stress. Inability to make rational decisions about yourself, because remember, the narcissist has told you what to think about yourself because they have flipped the script on you. They have taken all your good qualities and flipped it to make it seem like bad qualities, and something is literally wrong with you. You hear them say things like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You're a grown woman. You're a grown man. What's wrong with you? Well, they're basically telling you something is wrong with you, and so your thoughts are now something is wrong with you. But it's that manipulative, and they're very strategic in the things that they say. They are psychological tormentors, and they know what they're doing, and they're very strategic in how they use their words. Remember that. I don't care how dumb they are, they're very strategic or how educated they are. They're very strategic at how they use their words. Inability to make rational decisions about yourself. Case said that continued struggle in developing trust in relationship with others. That's a given. You look at all the things that you've been through. So of course it's hard to trust people, especially when they, and they may not be a narcissist, but they may have similar behavior, or certain things that they say will trigger you into thinking that they're probably just like the last abuser. And not everybody is a narcissist. Let's see. Nightmares. Flashbacks about the traumatic event, avoidance of situation which reminds you of the trauma, hyper-vigilance, and I want you to understand the definition of hyper-vigilance. Hyper-vigilance, let me move my little camera over, okay. Hyper-vigilance is, some people that are very hyper-vigilant are very argumentative, and they're always suspicious. They do have problems with their sleep. They're also an extreme state of alertness that undermines their quality of life. They're always on the lookout for hidden dangers, both real and presumed. And so everything is danger to them. Everything, they're constantly on guard. And remember, I talked about that when your adrenaline is pumping like that, and you're constantly, and that's why we're talking about the amygdala. So the amygdala. So I got it right, amygdala, the amygdala. I finally got it pronounced. And remember, English was actually my second language. I had to learn English. Now that I know English, I've lost my fluency in my first language. So it's amygdala. I got it. Thank you guys for helping me. But remember, we talked about that and those levels of stress. And if you have that much adrenaline and that much stress pumping in your system, it will begin to affect your immune system. And so with that affecting your immune system, you'll have sexual problems. Some of you have talked about the sexual problems, sleep disturbances, severe anxiety and depression. You have like headaches, tension headaches, migraines. Let's see. Unfortunately, some affected people may even try to adopt the role of abuser themselves. So hurting people hurt people, and they become abusers too, because they're always on the defense, and they're always trying to fight, seen or unseen attacks, so they're constantly on guard, and they'll lash out on people that mean them well, and they'll abuse too. Let's see, harming others and seeking situations that might give them a sense of original impact. That can last for months, interfering with day-to-day activities if left undiagnosed. So now let's talk about the complex post-traumatic stress. It's also a disorder of extreme stress, and this condition develops when individuals who experienced a prolonged duration of victimization, months, years, due to various life events such as warfare, which you go through warfare in your house and in your head dealing with a narcissist, prostitution, long-term child abuse, physical abuse or sexual abuse, which some of you experience with the narcissist, torture, which some of you experience with the narcissist. They mentally, psychologically torture you, and they physically torture you. Long-term domestic violence, which narcissist abuse is domestic violence. It's just this happens to be a person that has narcissistic personality disorder, but that is domestic violence. Let's see. So sufferers with complex post-traumatic stress will often have severe disorientation of moods and attitudes, very similar to post-traumatic stress, severe impairments of controlling impulses, physical symptoms like headaches, body aches, insomnia, and fatigue, and problems with self-identification. So remember, we were talking about how the immune system is broken down with all this extra adrenaline, and you're constantly on that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And so it begins to it starts taking away from major organs and is going to your muscles, and you're starting to have issues with too much adrenaline in your body. And so you begin to have tension headaches, your stress levels are very, your tolerance is very low, you have migraine headaches, you have problems with your vision, your muscles are starting to hurt, and a lot of you will end up going to the doctor, and the doctor cannot clinically or medically find anything wrong with you after running tests, but you know that you're feeling these symptoms and you're concerned because you know something is wrong. That's when they usually say you may be having somatic symptoms, somatic disorder. You need to go see a therapist. And what's the first thing most people say? So you telling me it's all in my head? I'm imagining this. Oh, so I'm crazy. It's all in my head. No, what happens is because of the post-traumatic or complex post-traumatic stress, the psychological symptoms of your stress and the level of stress and the trauma you've experienced begins to manifest in your body as physical symptoms. There's also, I think it's conversion disorder, where a person has actually went blind. There's no reason why they should have been blind. I've been registered with whatever state they were with as being blind. And they showed, I think, a video of it where there is no medical reason why that individual should have went blind. It's a psychological disorder where the brain just shuts down because the stress and the trauma may be entirely too much. And so what ends up happening is they went blind. And once they begin to go to counseling to relieve that stress, the vision came back. Or if someone was unable to walk, they showed that too. They lost their ability to walk. They literally almost like they could not walk. And they were in a wheelchair for years. And they had to go get psychological help to help them walk again. And it was a psychological condition. And it, like I said, this type of trauma and anxiety, the brain is a powerful thing, and the mind is a powerful thing that can shut down, people thinking they have medical issues. Some of those medical issues are actually mental health issues, dealing with trauma, anxiety, stress, depression, and at its severest form. Let's see. Problems with self-identification, labeling their own self as defective or evil. You're with a defective, evil person, and so you're not defective and evil, but they're going to make you feel that way. And then a narcissist will actually, all the things that they do, they'll reverse it and make it seem like you're doing everything. You're the problem. You're the one. Everything, a narcissist doesn't identify that they're a narcissist. They'll just take the symptoms that, the things that they're doing, and they'll say you're doing it. And so now you're thinking something is wrong with you, and now you're checking yourself. Why are you checking yourself? And you know that you've never been a person like that. Emotional insecurity, that's a lot of what you guys say. Difficulty in developing trust in others, alteration of attitude about the abuser, rationalization or justification of the abuser's action. Remember, that's that Stockholm syndrome, where you've been abused so much that the abuser abuses you but rescues you, abuses you but rescues you. That's that trauma bonding. So trauma bonding and the word that I just said, that Stockholm syndrome is interrelated. Believing in believing in an meaningless or negative aspects of life and impaired self-consciousness. And so let me move over to this. So here on NeuroLife, which is chiropractor and functional medicine center, they also talked about the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD. And PTSD, and they made it very simple, is a result of acute trauma, such as combat trauma, witnessing a death, being in a natural disaster or an accident. And the symptoms are related to re-experiencing the trauma and wanting to avoid situations that trigger that. People with post-traumatic stress disorder tend to be more hyper-vigilant, on guard, constantly on guard, and have negative feelings and belief. Complex post-traumatic stress, the result of repetitive and prolonged trauma, such as ongoing physical abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect that is often experienced in childhood, but can also include domestic violence and abuse, exploitation in adulthood. And so some of you guys are actually experiencing complex post-traumatic stress because some of you have been in those relationships so long and prolonged with no break, constantly abused over and over and over again, tormented and tortured. And even those of you that have children that have divorced the abuser, male or female alike, even the words that they use, the things that they do, you cannot trust a narcissist. Just like you don't trust a cobra, you cannot cuddle with a cobra. Do not cuddle with a cobra. That's a narcissist. Do not cuddle with a cobra or a hungry anaconda, period, or a scorpion. You will get stung, bit, and you will be killed. So a person with complex PTSD will have symptoms of PTSD along with the following: difficulty regulating emotions. Remember, experiencing persistent sadness, suicidal thoughts, and rage. Disassociation that pulls a person out of the moment. Amnesia about the trauma. So certain parts of the trauma you may not remember or recall. Or obsessing about or reliving the trauma. Some of you guys are ruminating. And so you're constantly turning it over in your head over and over and over and over again. And you're stressing yourself out. Feeling indifferent than other humans with persistent helplessness, stigma, shame, or guilt. Some of you guys are so embarrassed or humiliated that you've ever gotten into a relationship with an individual like that. And especially, and I'm going to talk about that too, smear campaigning. Someone asked me to talk about that, especially when they smear campaign you and make you look even worse. And really, it's your response to the smear campaign. And we'll talk about that. Seeing the perpetrator in a distorted way, either giving them too much power or obsessing about revenge. So some of you guys want revenge. It's not going to help you. You can't fight a narcissist on a level playing field, and you don't fight fire with fire. You have to be more wise at dealing with a narcissist because they're impulsive, and when you don't respond, a lot of times they'll self-sabotage depending on the level of narcissism they're at, low to mid-range. The greater narcissists, they're great thinkers. Cerebral narcissists, they're great thinkers. They always try to outthink you. They never take a break from thinking. When you're asleep, they're still thinking on how to get you back. If you cause a narc injury or if you think that you got away, something as simple as you won a court case or anything, they're always thinking on how to get you back. They never stop thinking. Problems with mistrust, isolation, or searching for a rescuer, which when it comes to personal relationship. So some of you guys have come out of bad relationships or even narcissistic relationships, so you're trying to find another relationship to rescue you from the last relationship. Well, that's a disaster waiting to happen, and you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again and pulling in a narcissist. That's what you're doing. Despair, hopelessness, and lack of meaning in life, and tendency to self-harm or self-medicate. So some people that come out of these relationships also, become addicted to drugs and alcohol. Literally, it's almost like zombies walking around because you're lost, you're in a fog, you can't think straight. You are now questioning everything about your own self, your education, your wisdom, your talents, anything. And really, it's not you. It's not you. It's the narcissist that has projected their own insecurities and self-deficiencies on you, and you've taken the responsibility of the way that they think and the way that they act and the way that they do things. Remember, they have taken your good qualities and turned it around and perverted it and handed it back to you, and you took responsibility. They turned around and began to project their feelings onto you and how they think. If you're quiet enough, if you listen without talking too much, they'll tell you everything about themselves. They'll tell you everything that they're doing and everything that they're thinking. So we have to learn to be wiser and listen, and they'll give you the game plan. It's just that you have to accept it when you hear it. Some people don't want to accept it when they hear it, but they'll give you the game plan if you're quiet enough and you listen without reacting. Respond, don't react. Responding means that sometimes you may have to be quiet. There will be some gap in the air, and what they'll use silent, even on a conversation, when you're having a conversation with them on the phone, or when you're having a conversation dealing with your kids, a lot of times they'll implement a long pause of silence because they want you to ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and you'll start telling on yourself. When they pause and they're quiet, you pause and you get quiet. That's all you do. And listen. They'll tell on themselves because they'll get uncomfortable. And so hopefully this has helped you today. And I wanted to talk about the aftermath of narcissist abuse. And I wanted to kind of revisit the post-traumatic stress and the complex post-traumatic stress. Some of you guys are in the early stages of healing. Some of you guys in the early stages of discard. Some of you guys are in the early stages of disbelief that you were in a relationship that really never existed. It existed in your mind and in your heart that you're with an individual that's really an android, a robot that has no feelings. It's like the android off of Star Trek. He said, I don't have feelings. I don't cry tears. I don't know what it feels like. He just mimicked and mocked. Well, he mimicked human emotions, and when they cried, he kind of looked like, you know, but he did not have the ability for human contact, human feelings. That's the same way that a narcissist is. Sad to say, because you were up in person, close and personal with them, may lived in the home with them, had children with them, and so everything seemed to be normal. And in your mind, you're thinking it's that cognitive dissonance. There's no possible way because I know this person. You never knew that person. The person that you're experiencing now, after the mask has fallen off, whether it was a few days, a few months, or a few years, some of you people have been in for years and the mask fell off and you found out that this is the person that they are, but you can't believe it because you want to go back to the love bombing stage. That's what that person is like. No, they weren't. That was the bait that got you hooked and caused you to bite, that caused you to be addicted to them. And so hopefully this has helped you today. Thank you guys so much for contacting me. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you so much for following me and finding something valuable that I have to say. Please subscribe to my channel, Dr. Carmen Bryant, Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Hit the bell so you know whenever I upload new videos. And you can join me on my Facebook page, Psychological Health, Consultants and Services. Hit the thumbs up, and I post the videos on both of the channels. Thank you guys. Please leave your comments. Let me know what topics you want me to talk about. I know I just had someone ask me to talk about the smear campaign. So I'm going to talk about the smear campaign, okay? And how to help yourself within that smear campaign to, make sure you stay stable. And a lot of you, it's going to take testing, whenever you study, the test comes. You got to pass the test. And if you don't pass the test, you got to take the test over again. That's just letting you know where you are, and and that's how you look at it, letting you know where you are and how far you have gone in your healing process. And eventually it'll become easier and easier. Just stick to the videos. You're also welcome to go to my mentor, those of you that have spiritual questions. My mentor is a pastor. She's the presiding prelate of Into His Chambers Global Ministries, and she talks about narcissism, but she gives you the spiritual aspect of narcissist abuse and what is going on spiritually. For those of you that are non-Christian, just takes the principles. She talks about the principles, and take the principles out of it. And so thank you guys so much. I stay on the clinical side, and she deals with the spiritual side, and we partner like that, and it works very well because a lot of you guys are on both of our sites. Continue watching the videos, get it into your system, and help strengthen yourself. That's what happens with penicillin. You don't stop taking the penicillin because you feel better. You continue until the doctor tells you to stop, or they give you a certain length of time. Continue watching these videos and get them in your system to strengthen. A lot of you said that you have been strengthening, you're feeling better, your head is clearing out, and I am so grateful. Thank you guys so much. Keep the comments coming. Talk to each other and let me know what you guys like to talk about. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great and wonderful day. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and as my friend always says, go and be great.